I have a real pleasure this morning. On the live is the founder of a little store called Home Depot. He was a pharmacist that helped create this store and turned it into one of the greatest success stories in American, maybe world business history. And since retiring from that, he's been busy funding charities, making sure that his money that he made goes to good use, including educating young people and in so many endeavors. And I'm proud to say I'm talking with Bernie Marcus, founder of Home Depot. Good morning, Bernie.
Good morning to you.
Where are you still in North Carolina?
I certainly am.
Well, I'm sorry to take up too much of your day, but it's important to talk to you because you care about this country, you care about business, you care about jobs, and you told me in a conversation the other day what your views on the success or lack thereof of our current president, despite what you read in the media. What do you have to say?
Well, look, I think that he's an unusual person. We're not used to people like him being president of the United States. Usually they're polished, they're politicians, they say the right thing at the right time, they're scripted in almost everything they do. This man is like your neighbor down the street, except he's a little wealthier. He just says what's on his mind. He says what he's thinking, and the press and Washington certainly is not in any way, shape, or form prepared for what he does. But I will tell you that in a very short period of time, if you take away his tweeting, he's basically done a very good job for the thing that you talked about, the thing that I'm interested in, which is job creating in America, and also the safety of our citizens. He's acted he surrounded himself with probably the best people you can in Secretary of State, Secretary of Army, Secretary of Defense. These are all top-notch people who are established, who know what they're doing. They know what their job. They're not political appointees, and they're going to give him advice that is sane, that is important. Unlike the last precedents that we've had, where they're political appointees. But in the area of what he's done on the economy, he's already passed. He's already gotten rid of 39, I think, executive orders that have really stopped job creation in America and has really held back the economy. His only problem is the Senate and the House, and I'm happy to say that for the first time, McConnell is finally doing what he should have done and saying, guys, you're not leaving until you finish the job. We were sent here to do a job on Obamacare and taxes, and you're not leaving until it's done. That's the way business people respond to an emergency, and I'm happy to see that it's finally happening with the U.S. Congress.
I heard you tell Neil Cavuto, I don't know when it was, a few days ago, a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, that if you were trying to start Home Depot today, you couldn't pull it off. How come?
Well, we never had. I mean, we started, we opened our first store in 1979, and I have to tell you that the rules and regulations of the government, the states, and the federal government were basically in our favor. They really were helping you to grow a business. Almost all of the things that made us successful in those early years, and I'm talking about the first 10 years, have been stifled by legislation that's been passed since. I'll give you a perfect example is DoddFrank. Most people hear the word, well, DoddFrank, what does it mean? It doesn't mean, I'll tell you what it means. It means we had a community bank that was the only one that stepped forward and gave us a line of credit. If that hadn't happened, Home Depot would never be here today. Just that one thing. Well, Dodd-Frank is basically pushing most small community banks out of business. And just the big are surviving and the small ones are falling by the wayside. Dodd-Frank by itself would have kept Home Depot from being what it was. That's only one instance. There are many, many others. There's Sarbanes-Oxley, a bill that was passed, or was signed, by the way, by a Republican, that basically said you have to have a certain amount of money in order to go public. When we went public, we had small sales but we were able to go to the market and get capital to grow our business. Well, today, it costs something like $3 to $4 million to go public. Well, only the big companies are going public. Small companies can't do it, and that's one way that you get capital to grow a business. So I'm very concerned about small businesses. As you know, Jason, we started Job Creators Network because small businesses have nobody speaking for them. All the big companies have lobbyists in Washington, and whatever happens in Washington, the small guy, that means your local pizzeria, your gas station guy, the guy that owns a laundry, the guy that owns a restaurant down the street. Nobody looks out for them, and I remember those days, and I remember the 80-hour weeks and 7 days a week, and I remember how hard we worked in order to achieve what we had to achieve. Today, everything is against you. By the way, you hear about this overtime rule that the Labor Department under Obama came out with. That overtime rule would have sunk the Home Depot the day we opened our stores. Everybody worked 50, 60 hours in those days. And by the way, all of those people that worked for us in those early days that stayed with us became multimillionaires.
Wow.
And so they didn't mind putting the hours in. But on a startup business, my God, you can't be on the clock with overtime. Anybody that started a business knows that when you start a business, you have to work long hours in order to achieve what you're going to achieve. So I am concerned about the small businesses, and I think that Trump has that in mind. He speaks about small businesses, and Job Creators Network is representing them in the Congress, in the writing of new tax bills, so that we don't forget about the small businesses.
Bernie, can you
by the way, they employ 70% of new hires in the United States.
Let's keep that thought. I've got to go to a commercial break, but I have so much more to talk to you about. Let's pick it up on what's facing these businesses. Talk a little bit more about your efforts with Job Creators Network and in another venture about young people in college. We'll be right back. My guest, who I've been speaking with the previous segment, who stayed on, and it's a pleasure to have the founder of Home Depot, Bernie Marcus, on. One of the greatest business people of all time, and also one of the most generous people in the history of mankind. We were talking about how regulations and like the stupid overtime rule is hurting businesses. It reminds me of the $15 minimum wage that went into Seattle, and they're just getting crushed. The people that were supposed to help are losing hours. And what were your thoughts on that, Bernie? Did we lose Mr. Marcus?
No, I'm here.
Oh, hi there. You must have had me on.
I'm still with you. I was listening to you very intently.
I was mentioning the $15 an hour minimum wage that they first put in Seattle, and it's already biting him in the butt. The people that were supposed to help.
Ultimately, what it's going to do. Look. You can't take somebody that has very slight margins, small margins. They did this in San Francisco as well. It sounds really good, and you really want to help people. The truth of the matter is minimum wage is for people who are entering the workforce. And I would say the vast majority, and I say this to you, Jason, knowing this, the vast majority of people that are paid minimum wage are young people who are entering the workforce for the first time. You go to a McDonald's, you see all these kids around the counter. Well, this is a great opportunity for these kids to learn discipline. They have to show up on time. They have to be well kept. They have to dress properly. They have to use deodorant. I mean, all the things that are necessary for somebody to get a job. And this is their entrance. Many people, and if you go into the fast food industry, you find out many people who own the fast food restaurants started at the counter at minimum wage. And what this does is give them that job. Now, let me tell you what has happened. The stupidity of the people that have done this. Right now, as we speak, there are 1,500 McDonald's that are now going automated, which means there are no kids at the counter. That means you're going to go in and you're going to do it on a pad and put your order in. Well, you think that's going to help young kids enter the work market? I think it does more damage. It is about as stupid as anything I've ever heard of. I can tell you that at Home Depot, we never hired anybody at minimum wage because we try to keep people at a higher level. We want to have people who have experience with people, know how to deal with people. But fast food restaurants, places like that are starting out, minimum wage is very, very important. And it's a great starter for somebody in the world. And look at what's going to happen in the future, because you're going to see automation across the board. Eventually, you'll go into restaurants, and you won't have waiters anymore. They'll be using pads to make their orders. This is about as dumb as I've ever seen of something that is supposed to protect people instead of actually costing people jobs.
I saw it when we live in North Carolina now, but we lived in Alexandria. And in 2011, we went to our favorite movie theater. It was a double level movie theater, big escalator, and concession stands on both levels. There would be, on both levels, 10 people behind the concession stand. When we went back there last year, same theater, same concession stand, 2 people on each one, because the customers handle themselves. And this is what is going to happen. And you're right, it's happening at McDonald's. It's happening all across the country. And once again, these people that think they're so compassionate and are doing the right thing are absolutely screwing the people that they're trying to help.
Yeah, I think there was one mayor, I think it was Charlotte, North Carolina. I think it may have been another city where the city council passed this, and she really looked at the facts, and she overrode it. She canceled it and would allow it to go through. So there are some politicians who have some brains out there who really understand the reality. You know, it's a feel good doesn't always work out well. You have to look at the facts, and you have to look at what the outcomes are before you make those kind of stupid mistakes.
You started a venture called Gen, Gen, FKD. Can you talk a little bit about that and why you started it and how it's working? And by the way,
this has to do with education. I'm sure you're talking about this. I want to tell you something, Jason. It's really interesting. When we started Home Depot, we started with about 120 people. I would tell you right off the bat that probably 80% of those people had high school graduates. Only 20% had degrees from colleges. Today at the Home Depot, I would venture to say the number isn't far off. I would say probably only 30% of our managers have college degrees and 70% don't. I think that's a number that's fairly accurate. I'm only saying this through people that I know. So college degrees don't always give you the opportunity. If you're a hardworking person, you got a brain in your head, you have common sense, you have the intent, and you have the courage to believe in yourself, you can be successful in anything. One of the problems that we face in today's future, which is a very serious one, is a shortage of people who are able to do electrical work, plumbing work. These are very fine professions. They make up a great part of our business at the Home Depot. We respect these people. They're important. I'm at my house in North Carolina. I'm expecting 2 groups of work people coming here today. They're very important to me. I'll tell you one other thing that's very important. We have a plumber coming today. This plumber, by the hour, makes more than the urologist that we have in a hospital in Atlanta. By the hour, he makes more. So, we believe that vocational education is something that we've forgotten about. There's this thing, you have to go to college, you must go to college. I just don't believe that everybody is acclimated to college. I think that a lot of people would be better off if they were in vocational work, if they were able to do, outside of engineers, the programmers, IT, a liberal arts education is not going to get you a job today in today's market. And we have 50% of the kids that are graduating from colleges today that are living with their parents, don't have any jobs, and can't find one. And they're not going to find one unless Trump changes the environment dramatically, which is going to take a couple of years to do. So I can tell you that what we're trying to do is to try to put vocation back into charter schools. We're working with companies like Home Depot to develop programs for vocation to try to encourage people to do the things that can make a very good living in the future, honest living, things that people desperately need. And I will tell you that there is no doubt in my mind that 10 years from now, a plumber will be in more demand than many other professions, certainly somebody with a liberal arts degree.
If I get another shot at this gig, will you come back on? Because I got a lot more to talk to you about, Bernie.
Yeah, sure.
All right.
Sure.
You've been listening to the founder of...
Happy to. Thank you so much for having me today.
Bernie Marcus on the Frank Beckmann Show. We'll be right back. Right back.